for the country. Let's get more on this now from Jen Kerns, who's been following the story as a contributor for the Washington Examiner. Jen, I know you've been a spokesperson for the Republican Party, also a contributor to Fox News. I assume you will not agree with this statement, but I'll put it to you. One of our contributors just described this as the most significant moment in politics and sport since Muhammad Ali refused the draft or since the Black Power salutes at the '68 Olympics.
Well, Mike, I do agree with that. I think this is a significant moment in American sports history. But I think the ending of this is going to be quite different than the NFL players who are kneeling on the field expect it to be. I think that these players are thinking from one week to the next. They're thinking from one Sunday to the next Sunday. And I think that President Donald Trump is thinking of the long game here. Look, we know we've seen the trend here. The ratings for the National Football League in America are down 14% already this year. That is quite significant. Those are the lowest ratings in nearly a decade. We saw what I call the Trump effect happen last November, in the same month that President Donald Trump was elected and spoke about this issue on the campaign trail. We saw 600,000 viewers unsubscribe from ESPN. I think that these multimillionaire football players are sorely mistaken if they think that the rest of America believes that they are somehow in this position where we should feel sorry for them. These are multimillionaires with multimillionaire deals. My vote here is with President Trump on this. I think he's thinking of the long game here. He knows Americans are sick and tired of this political correctness that has spilled over onto the field, and I think he'll end up being the victor here.
Jen, I think you know that they are not asking anyone to feel sorry for them. They say they're making a stand against police brutality and racism, and it is significant, isn't it, that so many of the owners, Trump donors, many of them, are in solidarity with their players. And after all, I mean, you know this, it was the president who put a match to this. It was a low-key protest by one player, Colin Kaepernick, until President Trump decided at a rally to attack him, suggest he should be fired, then, excuse the phrase, started calling other black athletes sons of bitches.
Well, look, I do agree. I think the president could have certainly used a different tone, a different language here. But the truth remains that if these NFL football players wanted to truly make a difference, why don't they go out into their communities that they grew up in? Why don't they give back to the communities? You know, Brandon Marshall, who works for the Denver Broncos last year, I think was a great example of this. He's an African-American, wanted to give back to his community. He, instead of taking a knee now, he has actually raised money, put that back into the community, and rolled up his sleeves and gotten to work. I think that's a much more productive solution than disrespecting the American flag. That is something that our troops overseas who are fighting in the war on terror feel very strongly about. It is something that our law enforcement officers here feel very strongly about. And most Americans, and I'm telling you, the polling on this will be interesting to see later this week. I think the polling on this is going to support President Trump's position.
Again, I suspect you know that many of those players do an enormous amount for their communities and with enormous amounts of money. Very briefly, the suspicion is, just deal with this if you would, that actually President Trump is distracting from his other troubles. That's what this is about.
Well, look, I mean, you know, we're a year plus on the Russia investigation. They have yet to find a single shred of evidence in that. I don't think that President Trump is terribly worried about that. President Trump has actually accomplished quite a bit in just his first 200 days. We've had record level stock markets here in America, 34 record days on the stock market, 1.4 million jobs. Look, if the president's doing this to distract from his great record, I would question that a bit. I think this is something he feels very passionately about, and he knows his base feels very passionately about as well. And look, I think Donald Trump here will end up being the victor. People have underestimated him all along, talking about how he's too brash. His tweets are too outrageous. This is a guy who I think is baiting the left in America into a fight over the American flag. And look, as the 2018 midterms are coming due here next year, a very critical election for our Congress here in Washington, D.C., I think that's not a fight you want to get into, and who's going to defend the flag and who's not. I think the flag wins every time.
And that's a bigger argument, which we'll get into another time. Jen Kerns, thank you very much. Let's talk again.
Thank you, Mike.